Hello, Nicholas. Nice to meet you, and thank you for taking this interview. How you doing?
For having me.
Glad you're here. Okay, we're just going to start off with, please, can you let us know what you do and how long you've been doing it?
So my name's Nicholas Goldman. I have a company based in Kensal Rise. We're a design agency. Essentially, we manufacture and design bespoke furniture. Essentially, that's what we do. It covers so many areas, mostly, but to the consumer, we're a retail, kitchen, wardrobe, furniture outlet. To the trade, we're a gateway to bespoke furniture. And that's essentially the umbrella that we fall under. We have a studio in Kensal Rise, which I'm in at the moment, and which I use as a base for people to come and have meetings and look at samples, etc., etc. And that's what we do.
And how long have you been running this business?
I've been doing it since I was an interior designer prior to doing what I'm doing now, and I started doing that around 2000. I worked as an interior designer for about a few years, and then I sort of been doing what I've been doing now for about 15 years, roughly.
So you have had to navigate through the pandemic.
I did, yeah.
Tell me, what was the biggest learning, what was the biggest challenge you had going through through the pandemic?
I think, I think the biggest challenge for me was I had a few projects on. None of my suppliers were working. So we had no one was essentially producing anything. And so when it was just a question, over the course of the pandemic and being isolated and staying at home, it was just communication. That was the key. Just not every day, but just sending random emails or just sending emails out and just communicating with existing customers, finding out how they were doing, whether they were working from home or not from home, and seeing how they were generally, just taking an interest in their lives, essentially, just to keep the communication channels open. And then just reassuring existing clients that had projects on with me that their work would start to come out whenever we got the green light to start to deliver it. We had a very large project in Chelsea I was working on, and we, as a result, we had some immense delays due to COVID. And also, a couple of the companies that we were working with were struggling really a lot with staff and their own costs and spiraling costs and stuff. So, it was just a question of really, for example, one of the companies we were working with was a concrete stone company. They were based up in the north of England. They were having a huge amount of, the COVID had a huge knock-on effect for them. The result was they struggled to get the product out. So the product they got out was at a substandard level. But we were lucky with them because although they tried about 8 times to get it right, they finally spent a lot of money and got it right. And then, so they could have just walked away, but they had a really big company and they didn't want to do that. But it was just a matter of just seeing the funny side and just saying, look, okay, let's try again, or look, we'll get this right the next time, and try assuring the customer. But I think everyone was pretty good because obviously everyone else was in the same boat, and so people were very forgiving. But at the same time, that was the key thing for me. COVID was communication, and maybe, maintaining that kind of visual advertising image that you were doing. Although I don't do a lot of advertising, I'm not big on that. Social media should be.
Okay, so thinking about you as a business owner in the last, say, 15 years, what would you say has been your biggest learning?
My biggest hurdle.
Learning. What have what's your
What have I
biggest learning?
learned
Yeah,
in the last 15 years?
since you've been a business owner, yeah.
Really, you're only as good as your last job.
Okay.
But for me, it's just I suppose I'm very much in the service industry. So for me, it's about delivering a quality product and also delivering a really good service. But also just don't get too attached to your so you have to stand back. I think one of the things, the problem is that what I've learned, I used to be so attached to what I delivered. Everything was a problem. If something didn't go right and there was an issue with something, I'd come home and it'd be like, oh my God, there's an issue with this and an issue with that. But really, at the end of the day, for me, what I do is a box on a floor. It's a wooden box that looks nice. Look, you can see, but they're all boxes. And if something's wrong, it's a speeding ticket. It's got to go back and it's got to get fixed. But at the end of the day, it's a small price to pay for peace of mind.
Yeah.
The knowledge of it's going to get done and the client's going to be happy and you'll get some more work from it and you'll get a recommendation and that kind of thing. But I would say to people, don't get too attached.
Do you feel more relaxed now than as a business owner from when you first started?
Yeah, I'm very relaxed. Yeah. Also, I think, you don't know where you fit in. It's really hard. The psychology behind where you fit into the marketplace, who your market is, who your audience is.
Yeah.
You can figure that out really quickly as a business owner, and you can say, look, my market's not everyone. My market is, I don't know, people between the age of 18 and 25, or for me, say the ages of, say, 30 to 50, married, children. That's my target audience. That's who I want to get in front of, those are the kind of jobs I want to be doing. If you can figure out in whatever your business is, who your audience is, and narrow that down to a select group of people and an area that you like to work in. So if if you have a business, for example, which is, I don't know, you can have an optician or a florist or a retail shop.
Yeah.
I would say hone into your market and hone into the area you're in. Become the big fish in the pond that you're in. And the pond could be really small. You could narrow that down to just one area or a town or what have you.
Yeah.
Or a local borough. In London, I work in London, so at the end of the day, you could be anywhere, but you could be, say, in Peckham, and if you or Lewisham or whatever, or Maida Vale, but you could be the best company in that catchment.
Yeah.
And you do that by having a good brand, a strong brand that you can then market with signs if people can see them, or vans if you drive them, or a really, really cool shop, or t-shirts or pens, that kind of thing. But just always the branding and the catchment, just working in a catchment.
Knowing your customer and
knowing your customer,
great advice.
Knowing where they live, knowing who they are.
Yeah.
And really honing in on what you do. The elevator pitch. I mean, I was lost for a long time as to where I fitted in, and now I sort of know what I am. And in a line, I'm a gateway to bespoke furniture for a lot of people who haven't got access to factories or that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Thinking about the market today, what's most inspiring you in either your industry or in business today?
Well, my industry is forever changing. It's really lovely to see different colors being introduced into the market and different materials and that kind of thing. It's really lovely to see some innovation, But we live in the United Kingdom, and people don't really want innovation all the time. We don't live in a world where we want sort of smart houses, and although in the background the construction part of the house could be smart, but mostly people still cling on to sort of traditional elements of the way people look, the classic look of something. So but what's really inspiring, I suppose, is social media, access to the world, what other people, how people live. There's this whole sort of culture at the moment, that's this sort of subculture at the moment, where people are sort of trying to break away from living in a city or a house, and they want to live slightly more remotely. I tell you what's very inspiring is during lockdown, when we were allowed to go for a walk, I met a guy in Hampstead Heath in the queue for lunch. We were talking, and he was saying to me that he had a business that did I suppose IT programming, that kind of stuff. He said he employed about 12 or 13 people, and he said, we were talking, and he said, I'm leaving, I'm going to go and buy a van and go traveling around America. And I said, how are you going to do that if you employ 12 people? And he said, well, none of the guys I employ work in the UK. They're all remote. So, and I'll just take my laptop with me.
There's so much more of that now, isn't there?
And that's the thing, that's fairly inspiring, because now, the world is, a lot more accessible than it was 10, 15 years ago.
I know that in Spain, I don't know if they're doing it in other countries in Europe as well, remote working visas. So for people that can, you can go to Spain for a few months and work, like you say, on your laptop there or anywhere in the world, I guess.
Well, the thing is that, look, a long time ago, my grandfather said to me, there's no point studying law when you can hire a lawyer. And I think this is very interesting, because you can't be the professional at everything.
No.
You can't be, you're better off being the expert at one thing. So whatever it is you're doing, be it property, be it, something to do with psychology, or if you're the health industry, whatever industry you're in, if you need help running your business, if you need help doing the social media or the marketing, you can go onto something like PPH and find an individual who lives in, I don't know, Kazakhstan, who might be into social media or 3D design or whatever, and he can help you. You can find people who are talented in all other areas related to business and management, and if you need a secretary, you can have a virtual secretary. You don't need to have someone sitting in a room. Right? So there's help everywhere, and it's very accessible. And I suppose that's the most inspiring thing at the moment, that the world is very much at your fingertips. And so that really does help you be the best you can be at your area, and you can have other people help you run your business
in other areas,
where you're not so strong.
A lot. I work with a lot of people that do that. Get help.
This is the problem. See, a lot of people are self-employed. A lot of people are employed by a company, and they decide to go alone and do it out of, and they end up not doing their job, and they end up doing the job of all the other people,
all the other hats, all the other hats.
The accounting hat, and they're doing the telephone hat, and the secretary hat, and they're doing the writing the letters and whatever. And so the problem is that then they don't actually get to do what they're good at.
You're
right. And then they don't make any money, and the business fails, or they can't afford to take on staff, and again, business fails. So it's a question of just finding these people online through various sites and just delegating the work out to them, so you can get on with doing what you're good at.
So on that note, what you're good at, looking forward to the future, what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges for you in your business going forward?
So for me, it's just maintaining. So right now, I've got some really good clients, and they feed me some very nice work, and So for me, it's just maintaining those relationships, and maybe trying to find some new ones in case they decide to stop working, which is a possibility. They're not my age, they're older, and so it may well that they don't want to do it anymore, which would be annoying for me. I would have to find new sources of work. And so it's developing new relationships with other designers. And you know, the thing is for my business, cultivating new clients isn't instantaneous, because they may well have a source already of people who make furniture for them. But they may not be looking. So it's a question of timing. It might be, you might have to wait for someone to be too busy, and then they can't take on a job that they want to give someone else, and so they give me an opportunity. It might be that their current suppliers also closing down, and they shut, you know, they close. And so for me, for the next 10 years, it's going to be just maintaining that source of work that comes in, because I don't have a large retail presence. I work in a very saturated market. So my model has always been to sort of really keep my overheads as low as possible, and then that allows me to sort of survive on a year-by-year basis with very low overheads. And by doing that, I can it's just then a question of maintaining good relationships with
keeping
customers.
those relationships strong.
So that's, I mean, in itself, that's a job, but it's like that, and then you reinforce that with Instagram, social media, communication, conversation, and those kind of things, really.
So final question for you. What would you recommend to a young person starting their first business in today's world?
I'd say to a young person starting a business in today's world, to really focus on the brand and try and have a really good, strong brand in the marketplace, be it some kind of one-worded brand and coloring and what have you. Really get a strong identity. Because that's really key. If you've got a strong identity, you can stand by that, and that can really help you. The second thing I would say is start in an area. As I said, start depending on what you do, but start in an area and be the best you can be in that area. So if you're working in London, don't treat the whole of London as your client base. Just work in a certain catchment, say in a borough or a town or a postcode or a series of postcodes, but choose an area where you feel, and then get your brand out as much as you can in that area and make yourself visible. And then I would say concentrate in that area, concentrate on your brand, and concentrate on doing a good job.
Brilliant.
Communication, doing a professional job, and is paramount. But assuming you're good at what you do, and you've got an identity, and you know who your target audience is, and who you're trying to attract, or who you're trying to get in front of, and what area you're working in. As long as you're following those three areas, you can that should be enough to get you going.
Great advice. Okay, thanks, Nicholas. That was really interesting, really good to talk to you.